She was a brilliant black lawyer, sharp, articulate, and on her way to court when a racist cop, annoyed by her confidence and expensive car, pulled her over and issued a completely fabricated traffic ticket. He smirked, thinking he'd put her in her place. He had no idea he'd just handed a loaded weapon to a legal powerhouse. In court, she didn't just fight the ticket. She put the officer and his pattern of prejudice on trial, humiliating him with his own lies and sparking an investigation that rocked the department. Welcome back, friends, for a story where legal brilliance meets blatant bigotry and where a courtroom becomes the stage for a truly epic takedown. Today, we witness a lawyer who, when targeted by injustice, turns her formidable skills against her accuser with devastating precision. If you believe in the power of the law to expose truth and hold bullies accountable, please subscribe and join our community of truth seekers. Your support helps us bring these empowering narratives to light. Thank you for being here for this final, powerful act of justice. Imani Hayes, a common surname in these narratives, symbolizing a shared spirit, though no direct relation to previous Hayes characters, was a force of nature in the Oakhaven legal community. At 38, she was a rising star, a senior associate at a prestigious civil rights law firm, known for her razor-sharp intellect, her meticulous preparation, and her passionate, eloquent advocacy for the marginalized and unjustly accused. Her courtroom presence was legendary, calm under fire, tenacious in cross-examination, and capable of dismantling even the most carefully constructed lies with surgical precision. Imani was a black woman who had fought her way through an often exclusionary legal world, driven by a profound sense of justice and an unshakable belief in the power of the law, when wielded correctly, to be a force for good. She didn't suffer fools gladly, and she had a particular disdain for abuses of authority, especially those tinged with racial or gender bias. On this crisp Monday morning, Imani was en route to the Oakhaven County Courthouse. She was preparing for a crucial hearing in a high-profile police brutality case she was litigating, a case that had already put her at odds with certain factions within the Oakhaven Police Department, OPD. She was driving her well-maintained but not ostentatious black Lexus sedan, a car she had purchased with the proceeds of her first major solo trial victory. Her mind was a whirlwind of legal arguments, case law, and witness testimonies, her focus absolute as she navigated the early morning city traffic. Dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal pantsuit, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, she exuded an air of quiet, formidable competence. Imani's hidden power was no secret to those who knew her professionally. It was her brilliant legal mind, her encyclopedic knowledge of the law, her skills as a litigator, and her unyielding determination. She knew how to gather evidence, how to cross-examine, how to expose inconsistencies, and how to build an unshakable case. And unbeknownst to the officer about to cross her path, she had a near photographic memory for details, and a deep familiarity with OPD procedures and personnel, gleaned from years of litigating against them. Patrolman Richard Rick Snyder was the kind of cop who gave good officers a bad name. He was a 15-year veteran of the OPD, a man whose early ambitions had long ago soured into a corrosive cynicism and a lazy, bullying approach to policing. He was known for his sloppy paperwork, his short temper, and his tendency to target individuals he perceived as uppity or disrespectful, a perception often heavily shaded by racial and socioeconomic prejudice. He particularly disliked lawyers, viewing them as meddling obstacles to his real police work, and he had a special animosity for successful black professionals who didn't fit his narrow, stereotypical worldview. He saw Imani's confident demeanor and her Lexus as an affront, a challenge to his own mediocre station in life. He had seen her around the courthouse, knew vaguely that she was an attorney, and it only fueled his resentment. As Imani signaled and made a perfectly legal right turn onto Court Street, Officer Snyder, who had been idling in his patrol car, strategically positioned near the intersection, saw his opportunity. He wasn't looking for a legitimate traffic violation. He was looking for a pretext, a way to harass and inconvenience this woman who, in his biased mind, represented everything he disliked. He pulled out behind her, his lights flashing abruptly, forcing her to pull over just a block from the courthouse. He was about to write a ticket, a completely fabricated one, intending to cause her a minor annoyance, perhaps make her late for court, assert his petty dominance. He had absolutely no comprehension that he was not just writing a citation. He was handing a declaration of war to one of the sharpest legal minds in the city, a woman who would not just contest the ticket, but would turn the tables with devastating, career-ending precision. The jarring flash of red and blue lights in her rearview mirror was an unwelcome intrusion into Imani Hayes's meticulously planned morning. She glanced at her speedometer, her brow furrowing. She was certain she hadn't been speeding. She replayed her last turn in her mind. Proper signal, came to a complete stop before the pedestrian crosswalk, yielded to oncoming traffic. No infraction. With a sigh of controlled frustration, this was a delay she did not need on the morning of a critical hearing. She pulled her Lexus smoothly to the curb, activated her hazard lights, and waited. Officer Rick Snyder approached her driver's side window with a slow, deliberate swagger, a look of smug self-importance already plastered on his face. He tapped on her window with his nightstick, an unnecessarily aggressive gesture. Imani powered down the window, her expression carefully neutral, though her legal mind was already cataloging his every action. "Well, good morning, counselor," Snyder drawled, his voice dripping with a sarcasm that was clearly intended to be demeaning. He knew who she was, or at least knew she was an attorney. "In a bit of a hurry to get to court today, are we? Seems you forgot some of the basic rules of the road." "Good morning, Officer Snyder," Imani replied, her voice calm, professional, betraying none of the irritation she felt. She recognized him vaguely from previous encounters around the courthouse, mostly involving his often combative testimony in cases her firm had handled. His reputation for being a difficult, prejudiced officer preceded him. "I believe I was driving with due care and attention. To what alleged infraction are you referring?" Snyder smirked. "Alleged? Oh, it's no allegation, ma'am. It's a fact. You ran that stop sign back there at the corner of Oak and 3rd. Blew right through it. Clear as day. That's a moving violation, counselor, and a dangerous one at that." Imani's eyebrows rose slightly. Oak and 3rd? That intersection was 3 blocks back, and it was controlled by a traffic light, not a stop sign. He was either mistaken or, more likely, he was fabricating the entire incident. "Officer," she stated, her voice still even but now carrying a distinct edge of challenge, "the intersection of Oak and 3rd is regulated by a traffic signal, which was green in my direction. There is no stop sign at that location. Perhaps you are mistaken about the street or the nature of the intersection." Snyder's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. He clearly hadn't expected her to call him out so directly, so factually, but he quickly recovered his arrogant composure. "Now, don't you try to tell me how to do my job, counselor, or what I saw with my own 2 eyes. I saw you disregard a posted stop sign. End of story. License and registration, please." He tapped his ticket book impatiently. Imani knew arguing with him further on the street was pointless. He was determined to issue this bogus ticket. She handed over her documents, her mind already shifting into litigation mode. This wasn't just about a traffic violation anymore. This was about an abuse of power, about an officer deliberately falsifying a citation, likely due to his animosity towards her, her profession, or her race, and she was not going to let it stand. Snyder took her license and registration, making a show of scrutinizing them with exaggerated care. Imani Hayes, Esquire, he read aloud, his tone mocking. Fancy, driving a fancy car, too. Must be nice. All that money you lawyers make off the backs of poor saps and criminals. His bitterness, his resentment, was palpable. Officer, Imani said, her voice like ice, my profession and my vehicle are entirely irrelevant to this traffic stop. Are you going to issue me a citation for a non-existent stop sign, or are we done here? Oh, I'm issuing it, all right, Snyder sneered, already beginning to scribble on his ticket pad with a flourish. And I'd advise you to just pay it, counselor. Probably not worth your valuable time to fight it, right? Unless, of course, you enjoy spending your days in traffic court. He clearly relished the thought of inconveniencing her, of dragging her through the system he represented. He tore the ticket from the pad and thrust it at her. Here you go. See you in court. Or not. He winked, a gesture of pure, unadulterated contempt. Imani took the ticket, her expression unreadable. Oh, you will see me in court, Officer Snyder, she said, her voice quiet but carrying an unmistakable promise. You can be absolutely certain of that. Snyder just laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound, then turned and sauntered back to his cruiser, clearly pleased with himself, convinced he had successfully asserted his dominance, put this uppity black lawyer in her place. He had no earthly idea what he had just unleashed. He had handed a legal declaration of war to a woman who dismantled liars for a living, a woman who was now personally, professionally, and righteously infuriated. He thought he was writing a ticket. In reality, he was writing the first chapter of his own public humiliation and professional downfall. Imani Hayes was not just going to fight this ticket. She was going to dissect it, expose it, and use it to shine a very bright, very uncomfortable light on Officer Rick Snyder and his pattern of misconduct. The courtroom, he would soon discover, was her turf. Imani Hayes arrived at the Oak Haven County Courthouse, the bogus traffic ticket clutched in her hand, a cold, controlled fury simmering beneath her professional demeanor. Officer Snyder's blatant fabrication, his sneering disrespect, his clear abuse of authority. It was an affront not just to her, but to the very principles of justice she had dedicated her life to upholding. He had picked the wrong woman on the wrong day. Her mind, already sharp and focused for her morning hearing, now had an additional, intensely personal case to prepare. The first thing Imani did, after successfully arguing for a continuance in her police brutality hearing, citing an unexpected and egregious personal legal matter requiring immediate attention, was to head straight to the City Traffic Division archives. She formally requested and obtained copies of the official Oak Haven City street maps, specifically detailing all traffic control devices, signs, signals, and markings for the downtown quadrant encompassing Oak Street, 3rd Street, and the surrounding intersections. As she suspected, and as she already knew from her daily commute, there was no stop sign at Oak and 3rd for traffic proceeding in the direction she had been traveling. It was, and always had been, a signal-controlled intersection. Snyder's entire premise for the stop was a demonstrable, verifiable lie. Next, she filed a formal discovery request with the Oak Haven Police Department, demanding Officer Snyder's activity logs for that morning, any dashcam or bodycam footage from his vehicle pertaining to her traffic stop. She suspected correctly that he would claim a malfunction, or that it wasn't activated for a minor traffic stop, a common OPD tactic she was well versed in combating, and, crucially, a complete record of every traffic citation Officer Snyder had issued in the past 5 years, along with the demographic data, race, gender, approximate age, of the cited individuals and the disposition of those cases, paid, contested, dismissed. This was not just about her ticket. This was about establishing a pattern. Her legal instincts, honed by years of battling systemic injustices, told her that Snyder's behavior towards her was likely not an isolated incident. She then spent her lunch hour not eating but meticulously driving the route she had taken that morning, this time with her own dashcam recording, narrating her speed, her signals, her adherence to all traffic laws, particularly as she approached and proceeded through the intersection of Oak and 3rd, clearly showing the green traffic light and the conspicuous absence of any stop sign. She also took high-resolution photographs of the intersection from multiple angles, documenting every traffic signal, every street sign, every lane marking. She was building an irrefutable visual record. Her colleagues at the civil rights firm, upon hearing of her encounter, were outraged, but not entirely surprised. Officer Snyder's name was familiar to them. He had been a peripheral figure in several previous complaints of biased policing, though nothing had ever stuck definitively. They immediately offered their full support, their team of paralegals and junior associates eager to assist Imani in what was now becoming not just a defense against a traffic ticket, but a proactive offensive against a problematic officer. "He picked a fight with a honey badger and he doesn't even know it yet," one of her senior partners remarked with a grim smile. The OPD, predictably, slow-walked her discovery requests. The activity logs were being compiled. The dashcam bodycam footage, as she anticipated, was unfortunately unavailable due to a previously undocumented equipment glitch that occurred just prior to and was rectified just after Ms. Hayes's traffic stop. The request for Snyder's 5-year citation history was met with claims of undue burden and privacy concerns. Imani was undeterred. She filed motions to compel, her legal briefs masterpieces of sharp, incisive argumentation, citing chapter and verse of state public records laws and discovery rules. She knew the pressure points, the procedural levers. She was not just any citizen fighting a ticket. She was a seasoned litigator, and she was on her home turf. Slowly, reluctantly, the OPD began to cough up the requested information. The activity logs, when finally produced, showed Snyder had been stationary for nearly 20 minutes in his strategic position near Oak and 3rd before pulling her over, suggesting he wasn't on routine patrol but potentially waiting, watching, perhaps for a specific kind of target. The citation history, when it eventually arrived after a judge threatened sanctions, was a revelation. A preliminary analysis by Imani and her team showed a statistically significant pattern. Officer Snyder issued nearly 70% of his traffic citations to minority drivers, particularly black women, often for minor or dubious infractions, in areas where such demographics were not the majority. Furthermore, a disproportionate number of these tickets were for failure to obey a traffic control device at intersections known to have malfunctioning signals or confusing signage, or, as in Imani's case, for devices that didn't even exist. Many of these tickets, her team discovered, were simply paid by citizens unwilling or unable to take time off work to fight them, creating a revenue stream for the city built on a foundation of questionable enforcement. Imani now had more than just a defense against her own bogus ticket. She had evidence of a potential pattern of discriminatory and predatory policing by Officer Snyder, a pattern that the OPD had either ignored or tacitly condoned. Her hidden power, her legal acumen, her access to resources, her unshakable determination was transforming a personal affront into a systemic challenge. The traffic court date, which Snyder likely envisioned as a quick default win for him, was now looming as a day of reckoning he could never have anticipated. Imani wasn't just preparing to get her ticket dismissed. She was preparing to dismantle Officer Rick Snyder on the witness stand, in open court for all of Oak Haven to see. The day of Imani Hayes's traffic court hearing arrived with an almost palpable sense of anticipation, at least within legal circles and among those OPD officers who were aware of Officer Snyder's impending self-immolation. Traffic court was usually a dreary, high-volume affair, a conveyor belt of minor infractions and harried defendants. But today, courtroom 3B was unusually crowded. Several of Imani's colleagues from her firm were present, ostensibly as observers, but their presence lent a certain gravitas to the proceedings. A few local court reporters tipped off that something more than a routine traffic dispute might unfold had also taken seats. Officer Rick Snyder swaggered in, his uniform crisp, his expression one of bored arrogance. He clearly expected this to be a quick in and out. Another citizen either failing to show or offering a fumbling, ineffective defense against his irrefutable testimony. He spotted Imani at the defendant's table, impeccably dressed, her demeanor calm and intensely focused, a thick binder of documents arrayed before her. A flicker of unease, quickly suppressed, crossed Snyder's face. He probably just thought she was overdoing it for a simple traffic ticket, when Judge Alistair Cummings, a stern, no-nonsense jurist known for his impatience with sloppy police work and his meticulous attention to detail, called City of Oak Haven versus Imani Hayes, Snyder took the stand, ready to recite his well-rehearsed, if entirely fabricated account. Officer Snyder, the city prosecutor, a young, inexperienced ADA named Miller, no relation to any previous Millers, just an unfortunate coincidence of common surnames in these narratives, began, "Could you please recount for the court the circumstances leading to your issuance of citation number 78B451 to Ms. Hayes on the morning of October 27th. Snyder cleared his throat, puffed out his chest slightly, and launched into his tale. "Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Miller. On the morning in question, at approximately 0835 hours, I was positioned at the intersection of Oak Street and 3rd Street, observing traffic. I witnessed a black Lexus sedan, driven by the defendant, Ms. Hayes, proceed directly through a clearly posted stop sign at that intersection, failing to stop or even slow down. I initiated a traffic stop and issued a citation for failure to obey a traffic control device." His delivery was confident, almost rote. "And Officer Snyder," Ada Miller continued, "are you absolutely certain it was a stop sign that Ms. Hayes disregarded and not, say, a traffic light?" "Absolutely certain, Counselor," Snyder affirmed, a smug little smile playing on his lips. "Clear as day, red octagonal sign, white letters, STOP. Can't miss it, unless you're not paying attention, of course." He shot a pointed look at Imani. It was Imani's turn to cross-examine. She rose slowly, her movements deliberate, her gaze fixed on Snyder with an intensity that seemed to make him visibly uncomfortable. "Officer Snyder," she began, her voice calm, almost gentle. "You stated you were positioned at the intersection of Oak and 3rd. Could you describe your exact position for the court? Were you in a marked patrol vehicle? Was your vehicle visible to oncoming traffic?" Snyder shifted in his seat. "I was in my marked cruiser, yes, parked on 3rd Street, just before the intersection with Oak, in a position to observe violations." "A position, perhaps, hidden from view, officer," Imani pressed. "Tucked away so as to surprise drivers who might be, as you say, not paying attention." "I was in a tactically sound observation post, Counselor. Snyder blustered, his voice losing some of its earlier confidence. "I see," Imani said, her tone neutral. She then approached the witness stand, holding up a large, professionally mounted photographic enlargement. "Officer Snyder, I show you what has been marked as Defense Exhibit A. Can you identify this photograph?" Snyder squinted at it. It appears to be a photograph of the intersection of Oak and 3rd. "Indeed it is, officer," Imani confirmed. "Taken last week from the perspective of a driver approaching on Oak Street, the direction I was traveling. Now, officer, could you please point out to the court the clearly posted stop sign that you testified I disregarded?" She handed him a laser pointer. Snyder stared at the photograph, his face beginning to flush. The photograph clearly showed a traffic light gantry controlling the intersection, with prominent red, yellow, and green signals. There was no stop sign visible anywhere for traffic on Oak Street. He stammered, "Well, sometimes signs are obscured, or temporary, maybe construction." "Obscured, officer," Imani pressed, her voice like silk-wrapped steel. "Or perhaps non-existent. I now show you Defense Exhibit B, officer. This is a certified copy of the City of Oak Haven's official traffic control map for this precise intersection, dated just last month. Could you please indicate on this official city document where the stop sign you described is located?" Snyder's flush deepened. The official map, of course, showed no such stop sign. He was caught in a clear, demonstrable lie, under oath, in open court. He mumbled something about perhaps being mistaken about the exact nature of the control device, but she definitely committed some kind of violation. "Some kind of violation, officer?" Imani's voice rose slightly, a hint of incredulous anger now coloring her tone. "Or did you, in fact, fabricate this entire incident? Did you, Officer Snyder, pull me over without just cause and then invent a violation to justify your actions because you disliked my presence, my car, or perhaps, officer, because I am a black woman attorney who you felt needed to be put in her place?" "Objection," Ada Miller finally piped up, looking flustered. "Counselor is badgering the witness and making unfounded accusations." "Sustained as to the put in her place comment," Judge Cummings interjected, his gaze now fixed sternly on Officer Snyder. "But officer, Ms. Hayes raises a serious point. Your testimony regarding a stop sign appears to be inaccurate. Do you wish to revise your sworn statement?" Snyder was sweating profusely now, his eyes darting between Imani, the judge, and the damning exhibits. I may have been confused about the stop sign, Your Honor," he conceded, his voice barely a whisper. "But she was definitely driving erratically." "Erratic how, officer?" Imani pounced. "Did I speed? Did I make an unsafe lane change? Did I fail to signal?" "Your initial sworn testimony was only about a stop sign that we have now established does not exist. So I ask you again, Officer Snyder, on what lawful basis did you initiate this traffic stop?" Snyder was floundering, his lies unraveling before his eyes. He had no answer. He had walked into a perfectly laid legal trap, sprung by a lawyer he had catastrophically underestimated. The courtroom was silent save for Snyder's ragged breathing. The humiliation was palpable. He had been exposed, his perjury laid bare, his prejudice hinted at. Imani Hayes hadn't just fought her ticket. She had systematically and very publicly destroyed his credibility. Judge Cummings, his face a mask of stern disapproval, peered down at Snyder. "Officer Snyder," the judge said, his voice like gravel, "you appear to have a serious problem with the truth. This court does not take perjury lightly." The word perjury hung in the air like a death knell for Snyder's career. The city prosecutor, Ada Miller, looked like he wished the earth would swallow him whole. He knew this case was not just lost. It was about to become a major scandal for the OPD. The utter dismantling of Officer Rick Snyder on the witness stand by Imani Hayes was nothing short of a legal masterclass. Judge Cummings, his face a mask of grim disapproval, dismissed the citation against Imani with a curt, "Case dismissed with prejudice due to a clear and unequivocal failure of credible testimony from the citing officer." He then addressed Officer Snyder directly, his voice resonating with judicial fury. "Officer Snyder, your testimony today has been, to put it mildly, an affront to this court and to the principles of justice. You have perjured yourself under oath. You have demonstrated a shocking lack of professionalism and a disturbing disregard for the truth. I am referring this entire matter, including the transcript of today's proceedings and Ms. Hayes's exhibits, to the District Attorney's Office for a full investigation into potential criminal charges of perjury and official misconduct. I am also directing that a copy be sent to Police Chief Harrison and the Office of Professional Standards for immediate disciplinary review. You are a disgrace to your badge, officer. You may step down." Snyder, his face ashen, practically stumbled from the witness stand, his career, his reputation, and potentially his freedom in ruins. The courtroom buzzed with hushed, incredulous whispers. Ada Miller, looking thoroughly defeated, offered a mumbled, almost inaudible, "No further witnesses, Your Honor." Imani Hayes, however, was not quite finished. While her personal traffic ticket was dismissed, the larger issue of Officer Snyder's pattern of misconduct remained. After the court session, she, along with her senior partner, immediately scheduled a meeting with Police Chief Harrison and the head of the Office of Professional Standards, OPS. They presented not only the evidence from her own case, the non-existent stop sign, Snyder's clear perjury, but also the preliminary findings from their analysis of his 5-year citation history, the glaring statistical evidence of racial and gender profiling, the pattern of dubious infractions, the targeting of minority drivers. Chief Harrison, who had already been briefed by a horrified ADA Miller and was anticipating the fallout from Judge Cummings's referral, listened with a grim expression. He had inherited a department with deep-seated cultural problems, and Officer Snyder was rapidly becoming the poster child for those problems. The evidence Imani presented was compelling, meticulously organized, and deeply troubling. It painted a picture of a rogue officer operating with a sense of impunity, his biases unchecked, his actions eroding public trust. The OPS investigation into Officer Snyder, now supercharged by a judicial referral and the threat of a wider scandal, moved with unprecedented speed. They corroborated Imani's findings regarding his citation patterns. They interviewed other officers, some of whom, emboldened by Snyder's public humiliation and sensing a shift in the departmental winds, reluctantly admitted to Snyder's aggressive attitude and his often expressed prejudiced views. His claims of equipment malfunctions for his dash cam and body cam during numerous controversial stops, including Imani's, were found to be part of a suspicious pattern suggesting deliberate evasion of recording. The public fallout was immense. News of a police officer being referred for perjury charges after fabricating a traffic ticket against a prominent civil rights attorney exploded in the Oakhaven media. Imani Hayes, while maintaining a professional and dignified public stance, became a reluctant symbol of resistance against police misconduct. Her law firm issued a statement calling for a full, independent audit of the OPD's traffic enforcement practices and the establishment of a more robust civilian oversight mechanism. Community groups, particularly those representing minority interests, rallied behind her, demanding Snyder's immediate termination and broader departmental reforms. Faced with overwhelming evidence public outrage and intense pressure from the mayor's office and city council, Chief Harrison had little choice. Officer Rick Snyder was suspended without pay, and after a swift disciplinary hearing, where Imani's evidence and the court transcript were central, he was terminated from the Oak Haven Police Department for gross misconduct, perjury, and a demonstrated pattern of biased policing. The district attorney's office, while ultimately declining to pursue felony perjury charges due to the high burden of proof for criminal intent, did charge Snyder with several misdemeanors related to official misconduct and falsifying official documents, to which he eventually pleaded guilty, ending any possibility of him ever working in law enforcement again. Imani Hayes's victory was complete. She had not only successfully defended herself against a bogus ticket, but she had exposed and helped to remove a corrupt and prejudiced officer from the streets. Her actions sparked a renewed, more urgent conversation in Oak Haven about police accountability, racial profiling, and the need for systemic reform within the OPD. Chief Harrison, using the Snyder case as a stark example, pushed through more stringent policies regarding traffic stops, officer testimony, and the mandatory use and review of body-worn and dash-cam footage. Imani Hayes had faced down a bully with a badge, armed not with a weapon, but with her intellect, her knowledge of the law, and an unshakable commitment to justice. She had humiliated him in his own arena, using the very system he sought to abuse, and in doing so had struck a powerful blow for fairness and equality in her city. The termination of Officer Rick Snyder and his subsequent plea to misdemeanor charges sent a clear and long overdue message through the ranks of the Oak Haven Police Department. Perjury and prejudiced policing would no longer be tolerated, especially when exposed with such irrefutable clarity. The public humiliation Snyder endured in court, meticulously orchestrated by Imani Hayes, became a cautionary tale, whispered about in hushed tones in precinct locker rooms and during roll calls. It served as a stark reminder that even a seemingly minor abuse of power, like a fabricated traffic ticket, could unravel an officer's entire career if it targeted someone with the skills, resources, and sheer tenacity to fight back. Imani Hayes, though she quickly returned to her demanding caseload at the civil rights firm, found her already considerable reputation further enhanced. She was lauded by legal associations for her brilliant courtroom strategy and her unwavering commitment to holding law enforcement accountable. She became an even more sought-after speaker on issues of police misconduct, racial justice, and the importance of robust civilian oversight. While she shied away from personal aggrandizement, she used her elevated platform to advocate for systemic reforms, pushing for better training, stricter disciplinary protocols, and greater transparency within the OPD and other law enforcement agencies across the state.